Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade today, esteemed speakers and all participants. The 2025 Africa Prosperity Dialogue held from the 30th to the 1st of February 2025 at the Accra International Conference Center in Ghana builds on the successes of the 2024 APD. As with the previous dialogues, the 2025 APD was held under the patronage of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana, under the theme, Delivering Africa's Single Market Through Infrastructure. Invest, connect, and integrate. The overarching objectives of 2025 Africa Prosperity Dialogue is to assist African countries to move from a fragmented continent to an integrated continent. And with continental infrastructure investment framework to guide coordinated efforts amongst government, private investors, and development partners for infrastructure development. The dialogue highlighted key issues and recommendations that African countries must commit to. 1, logistics and transport. Africa's infrastructure deficit significantly impedes the free movement of people, goods, and services, with poorly maintained roads, limited airline system, outdated railways, and inefficient ports, driving intra-African trade costs up by 30 to 40%. So, African countries must fully implement 1, the single African air transport market and the Yamoussoukro decision by deregulating air services to fully liberalize intra-Africa air transport in access, capacity, frequency, and tariffs. There is also a great potential in fully exploring transportation through our maritime highways. We must aggressively implement the Africa Integrated Maritime Strategy 2050. We must build durable roads using innovative technologies that are now available. We must not only build railways, but we must also manufacture our own trains on the continent. Efficient and integrated transport systems are key to reducing trade costs, increasing intra-African trade, and improving market access for business, especially for small and medium enterprises. 2, accessible and affordable, sustainable energy. The dialogue underscores the importance of energy, especially renewable energy infrastructure, empowering our industries and supporting the digital economies, ensuring sustainable development. With over 30 countries experiencing regular power outages, delegates call for a collective and coordinated regional energy policy and development of interconnected power grids to enhance reliable and affordability. The Grand Inga Dam has been talked about ad infinitum. I think it's time now that we come together and stop talking and invest. And this will solve our power problems. We need continental-wide mobile system interoperability. Policy fragmentation across African Union member states further complicates efforts to establish harmonized digital ecosystem. Africa must prioritize an interoperability of communication and financial platforms within the next 5 years. Invest in broadband, expansion of e-commerce, and mobile platforms, payment interoperability, and regulatory harmonization to unlock the potential of digital trade. Ghana's mobile payment system serves as a benchmark for our nations aiming to streamline digital transactions. African countries should establish a pan-African transport and logistic network, maybe modeled after the Amazon, to enhance efficient, seamless, and technology-driven supply chains across the continent. This would require an integrated air, road, rail, and maritime transport systems, leveraging digital platforms, AI, and blockchains for real-time tracking, seamless customs, faster cross-border trade. Such networks would reduce cost, improve market access for SMEs, and drive intra-African trade, accelerate economic integration under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Social infrastructure, health. African countries must increase investment in pharmaceutical production to reduce dependency on imports and enhance healthcare resilience. Expanding technology access can improve healthcare delivery whilst leveraging digital financial solutions such as mobile payments and health insurance platforms, which can enhance affordability and accessibility. Must strengthen private-public partnerships for financing. Then we come to education, STEAM. African countries should prioritize science, technology, engineering, STEAM. African countries should prioritize science, technology, education, engineering, arts, and maths. And this will prepare our young people for future jobs. Investments in digital infrastructure, teacher training, and industry partnership will foster innovation, enhance problem-solving abilities, and drive economic growth. Expanding access to technology, enabling learning will ensure inclusivity and prepare the workforce for Africa's digital and industrial transformation. African countries must prioritize investments in technical and vocational education to address the skills gap and promote economic inclusivity. Financing of infrastructure. Africa's infrastructure financing gap, estimated at 100 billion annually, remains one of the most significant barriers to economic integration and sustainable development. Traditional public financing models alone are insufficient to meet the continent's rapidly growing infrastructure demands. To bridge the gap, Africa must embrace innovating financing mechanisms that effectively leverage private sector investment, domestic capital, and diaspora resources. A shift towards structural partnerships and scalable financial models is essential to unlocking the continent's full economic potential. Unified Public-Private Partnership Framework for Africa. A unified public-private partnership framework is essential for Africa to bridge its infrastructure financial gap without accelerating national debt. With limited fiscal space, governments must turn to private sector investments. A continent-wide PPP framework led by the Africa Continental Free Trade Secretariat would harmonize legal and regulatory structures, streamline project approvals, and introduce risk-sharing mechanisms like infrastructure guarantees to attract investors. The success of the Nigerians' 1.5 billion Lekki Deep Sea Port is one good example of that. Establish an Africa Infrastructure Fund. Africa needs a dedicated infrastructure fund to unlock 2 trillion in domestic capital from pension funds, insurance funds, sovereign wealth funds. Mobilizing these resources can provide a sustainable solution to the continent's infrastructure financing challenges. To make this fund effective, governments must implement key reforms, including streamlining regulations to allow long-term investments, introducing risk mitigation tools like blended finance and infrastructure bonds, and ensuring strong governance and transparency to build investor confidence. The South Africa's government employee pension fund investing in infrastructure is one example of that. We must also leverage on the potential of Africa's 100 billion diaspora remittances for infrastructure development. African diaspora communities sent home over 100 billion, an amount that exceeds both official development assistance and foreign direct investments. This represents the vast potential the diaspora can contribute to financing Africa's infrastructure. To unlock this capital, African governments must introduce targeted financial instruments, diaspora bonds, and in-country bonds offering attractive returns can be a strategic tool for financing major infrastructure projects. Simplified tax policies and infrastructure-backed investment funds will encourage sustainable engagement from the diaspora and the country nationals. The Ethiopian Renaissance Dam funding is one good example of that. Strengthening Africa's capital markets to mobilize infrastructure-related financial systems that can effectively mobilize investments. A key step is the integration of capital markets across borders, allowing seamless financial flows and investment opportunities.